Hello everybody, my name is Santiago Gascó Altaba. I'm Spanish and I'm currently living in Italy. I'm a victim of feminism and the author of a book in Italian in 2 volumes, La grande menzogna del femminismo, The Great Lie of Feminism, with an important historical background. With this spectacular Spanish accent, I would like to talk to you about the correct definition of the word feminism. It may sound like a stupid and simple question, but it is not. It is indeed a fundamental question. In order to make any discussion, we all have to agree on the meaning of the words. If each person has in mind a different meaning of the word feminism, then no discussion among these people can be possible. That's why it is fundamental to determine the correct meaning of the word feminism, and that's what I will try to do. Let's start. Philosophy. 2 syllogisms. First syllogism. Major premise. All human beings need and have a right to institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Minor premise. Men are human beings. Conclusion. Men need and have a right to institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Second syllogism. Major premise. Discriminated human groups do not have institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Minor premise. Men do not have institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Conclusion. Men are a discriminated human group. In fact, how many public institutions or private institutions financed with public money that protect men's rights and try to solve their specific problems can you name? How many do you know? Worldwide? In your country? Locally? It doesn't matter. I don't know any in the country where I come from, Spain. I don't know any in the country where I live, Italy. I don't know any in the continent where I belong to, Europe. There are none. Instead, I can name hundreds and hundreds of institutions that protect women's rights and try to solve their specific problems. Hundreds, at any level, international, national, locally. For instance, here are some examples from the United Nations. United Nations Development Fund for Women, United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, Division for the Advancement of Women, International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Commission on the Status of Women, Office of the Special Advisor on Gender Issues and Advancement of Women, UN Women. Locally, when I go to down hall to speak to a public assistant about my problems as a man, at the entrance there is a big poster with telephone numbers from a woman organization. Ascolto donna, which means we listen to women. These public assistants, they don't want to hear men's problems. They don't care. I can name hundreds of associations of this type in Italy. If you didn't get the point, I'm going to repeat it again. Listen carefully. 2 syllogisms. First syllogism. All human beings need and have a right to institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Minor premise. Black people are human beings. Conclusion. Black people need and have a right to institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Second syllogism. Major premise. Discriminated human groups do not have institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems. Minor premise. Black people did not have institutions that protected their rights and tried to solve their specific problems. Conclusion. Black people were a discriminated human group. The question is, what was the dominant criminal ideology that prevented black people from having institutions that protected their rights and tried to solve their specific problems? Racism. What was the dominant criminal ideology that prevented slaves from having institutions that protected their rights and tried to solve their specific problems? Slavery. What was the dominant criminal ideology that prevented Jews from having institutions that protected their rights and tried to solve their specific problems? Anti-Semitism. So, what is the dominant criminal ideology that prevents men from having institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems? Racism, anti-Semitism, slavery, fascism? The answer is feminism. Why is feminism preventing men from having institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems? In order to understand why, we have to understand what's feminism. We have to define feminism. To define things precisely is very important. As Aristotle taught us, the more generic a term is, the more confusing it is. When the words are abstract, inaccurate, or vague, we reduce the ability to understand and distinguish the message. This is a factual problem of the word feminism. It seems feminism has so many different meanings depending on the subjectivity of the person questioned. To some, feminism is equality. If feminism is equality, we can ask us the most stupid question. Why isn't feminism fighting for men to have equal number of institutions as women have? Feminism has always fought that men do not get public funds and don't have the same institutions as women have. So it's obvious feminism cannot be equality. To some, feminism is the hatred of men. Feminists would be man-haters. Nevertheless, it is also true that in most of their writings, feminists do not invoke the hatred of men. Feminism is neither equality nor the hatred of men. So, what's feminism? I would like to introduce you a very good definition of the word feminism by the Spanish feminist philosopher Victoria Saul. Feminism is a social and political movement which officially started in the late 18th century and which involves the awareness of women as a group or human collective of the oppression, domination and exploitation that women have been and are exposed to by the male collective within the patriarchal society all along the historical production model. This movement encouraged women to act in favor of the gender, fostering women's liberation and demanding as many social transformations as required in order to do so. There are 4 key points in this definition. First, the women's oppression, domination and exploitation. Second, this oppression, domination and exploitation are made by the male collective within a system called patriarchy. Third, it is an historical and current oppression. And fourth, women have to be liberated. Feminism is a liberation movement. In conclusion, feminism is the ideology that supports the historical and current oppression of women by the hands of men within a system called patriarchy. This is the correct definition of the word feminism. If you agree with this statement, you are a feminist. If you disagree with this statement, you are not a feminist. So simple. It doesn't matter if you are abolitionist or regulationist of prostitution. It doesn't matter if you are pro-abortion, pro-life or pro-choice. It doesn't matter if you are against or for pornography, against or for hijab, against or for sex freedom, against or for nudism or topless, if you are conservative or socialist, if you are religious or anti-religious, if you are fascist or communist. All these ideas and positions have been defended by people that have called themselves feminist. So again, what makes a feminist a feminist? Not his ideas about abortion, prostitution, religion, politics, etc. His belief in this statement. Historically and currently, women are oppressed by the hands of men within a system called patriarchy. If you believe in this statement, you are a feminist. As you can see, feminism has nothing to do with equality. It's related with the liberation concept of the 70s. Women have to be liberated from men's oppression. Women are victims and men are their oppressors. Now, we know, thanks to the study of semiotics, that the meaning of a message is not reduced to the message itself. Semiotics is a discipline based on relationships. From one statement or proposition can be made immediate inferences. In a simple way, an inference is a sort of deduction. It's a conclusion or an opinion that is formed because of known facts or evidence. For instance, from the statement, "This is a pen," immediate inferences can be made. This is not a tree, or this is not a table. For instance, from the statement, "This is blue," immediate inferences can be made. This is not black or yellow. This opposition is called contradiction. The semi-category is very broad. There are many possibilities. When it comes to a two-member semi-category, to a semic-binary category, the opposition is called contraposition, and there is only one immediate inference. For instance, from the statement, "He's alive," the immediate inference is, "He's not dead." Likewise, mankind is a semic-binary category. The two members, men and women, are opposite to each other. So when I say currently and historically women are oppressed by the hands of men within a system called patriarchy, I'm also saying historically and currently men are not oppressed by the hands of women in any social system. So when I say women are victims and men are their oppressors, I'm also saying men are not victims and women are not their oppressors. So when I say women suffer, I'm also saying men do not suffer. In order to make this feminist statement, this faith to become true, feminists work actively in two directions. First, hiding all the injustice and crimes that women commit. Second, hiding all the injustice and suffering men suffer. In the feminist ideology, men cannot have problems or suffering. Otherwise, the feminist theory about patriarchy and the women's oppression by the hands of men would be a wrong ideology. It would be a false ideology. That's why feminists are always opposed to supporting men's rights associations. Men do not have the right to ask for their rights because, in feminist mind, men have already conquered all of them a long time ago. Going back to the beginning, why don't men have institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems? Because feminism opposes them, because they cannot exist. If they could exist, it could mean the feminist theory would be wrong. It would be a false ideology. That's why there have been several world conferences on women, but none on men. That's why there is an UN Women, but there is not an UN Men. The UN ex-General Secretary Ban Ki-moon said, UN Women will significantly boost United Nations efforts to promote gender equality, expand opportunity and tackle discrimination around the globe. in his mind, you don't need an UN man to promote gender equality, expand opportunity, and tackle discrimination around the globe. And what about equality and the hatred of men? Very simple. In the feminist mind, women are oppressed and men are privileged oppressors. This is the feminist theory, as we have already seen. So, women are here and men are here. In order to get equality, we have to help women and give them rights, from here till here. So, in the feminist mind, they are working for equality. If the feminist theory were true, it could be correct when they're saying they are working for equality. Feminism could be equality. But there are two other different hypotheses that could be also right. In the second hypothesis, men and women were more or less equal. They have different problems, but they were more or less equal here and here. So in the last 50 years, we have been helping women and giving them rights and ignoring men. So now women are here and men are still here. In the third hypothesis, men had more problems and suffering than women. In the last 50 years, feminism has made things worse. So, women were here and men were here. Now men will be much more at the bottom. That's why it is essential to examine which one of the three hypotheses is true. It is essential to examine whether the first hypothesis, the feminist hypothesis, is true or false. Because if the feminist theory happens to be false, it could mean that since more than 50 years now, the Western world will be discriminating men. It could be that since more than 50 years now, feminism will be working actively to discriminate and cancel all the men's problems in this society. Suicide, mostly men. Homeless, mostly men. Drugs and alcohol problems, mostly men. Prison population, guilty or innocent, it doesn't matter, in both cases, mostly men. Parental alienation, mostly men. Civil war casualties, mostly men. Fatal war accidents, mostly men. Victims of violence, torture or murder, mostly men. Military compulsory service, and so on and so on. If this were the case, feminism would be indeed the hatred of men. Let me refer to you a very nice example about how things really are and how things should be according to the feminists. In Spain, in 2018, a Spanish feminist called Yolanda Domínguez made a conference as a speaker during the 9th Congress about violence against women. Her lecture was feminism. So she said feminism was equality. Then she asked all the feminist men in the public, the room was full of people, to raise their hands. Afterwards, she asked the men with raised hands to stand up so that she could see them better. Then she asked them one more thing. In order to give visibility to women, they should step back. They should move to the end of the room so that the women sitting in the last rows could sit where they were sitting. When all the women were sitting in the front rows and the men were at the end of the room, she asked them the last thing. In order to feel how women feel in this society, they should stand up for the entire talk. During the entire talk, the room remained segregated by sex. Women sitting comfortably in the front rows, and men at the end of the room standing, listening how Yolanda Domínguez was explaining them what was equality. Later on, she said again, feminism was equality, a movement that favors women to level a situation that it is unfairly unbalanced. In conclusion, at the beginning we have an audience of men and women distributed more or less equally. Men and women had the same opportunities. The people who came earlier took the best seats. Sex did not matter. Then arrived feminism and said women were oppressed, so the oppressed women should sit in the front rows, and all the men who were privileged, they would move to the end of the room and stay standing for the entire speech. When all the women were sitting in the best seats and all men were standing at the end of the room, then according to the feminism, there was equality. So we have men and women here at the beginning, and then at the end we have women here and men here, and this was called by the feminists equality. Historically and currently, women are oppressed by the hands of men within a system called patriarchy. Is this statement the definition of feminism? True or false? This could be a different subject, and I'm not going to discuss it on this video. My English is not fluent enough and my accent is pretty terrifying. It is not enough to have things clear in mind, it is also necessary to be able to express them clearly. I have written a book in Italian in 2 volumes, La grande menzione al femminismo, The Great Diary of Feminism, to prove this statement is completely false. You might learn Italian and buy it. Currently, you can check on your own if this statement is true or false. You live in this society and you can see men's conditions every day. Some problems are typical men's problems, as suicide, homeless, drugs and alcohol problems, discrimination on divorce courts, unlegal custody of a child, fatal war accidents, and so on. Are really men only privileged in this world? Don't men really need institutions that protect their rights and try to solve their specific problems in this society? Historically, if you don't want to learn Italian and read my book, I want to ask you a very simple question. For centuries, the galley slaves have pushed war ships and commercial ships through the Mediterranean. The galley slaves were chained to an oar, they were often whipped, and they suffered hunger, cold, and heat. Many of them no longer knew freedom, they died. It was the worst life you can ever imagine. Women could not be galley slaves. It was forbidden by law. Only men could be galley slaves. For centuries, a lot of women have gone to the markets of the village or of the town square to buy spices and products that were transported by ships pushed by the galley slaves. The feminist historical narrative says that the galley slave as a man was a privilege, and the woman going to the market to do some shopping was the oppressed one. Really? Do you really believe that the chained and whipped man was the privileged one, and the woman doing some shopping of products that were transported by this chained man was the oppressed one? If you succeed in logically convincing me that these men were privileged oppressors and those women were oppressed, then I promise you, I will become a feminist. My name is Santiago Gascó Altaba, and I am a victim of feminism. Without having committed any crime or anything socially reprehensible in the society where I live, Italy, I have been taking away my children, my apartment, my money, dignity and justice, threatened with prison. Some of my human rights and of my children's human rights have been violated. For instance, the Article 9 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. States parties shall respect the right of the child who is separated from one or both parents to maintain personal relations and direct contact with both parents on a regular basis, except if it is contrary to the child's best interest. For so long, I didn't maintain personal relations and direct contact with my children. I could not raise and educate them, and they could not have a father. So where are our human rights? My only thought was to be a man. Here, I am reporting a very serious thing. I'm reporting the violation of my human rights. The possibilities are two. Or I am wrong because I could raise my children and I didn't. I am a kind of crazy person, so I need help. So where is the government helping me? Or I am right, I'm telling you the truth. I'm reporting the violation of human rights in Italy that are real. But not only in Italy, it happens all over in the Western world, because there is a dominant criminal ideology called feminism that is fighting against the human rights of the half of the mankind, the men's rights. That's why I'm asking you, please, to help me to stop feminism. Feminism is working against our rights. Feminism is violating our rights. It's violating my rights. I do not have any institution that protects my rights as a man. So, stop feminism. If you are watching this video, you are the resistance. Stop feminism. Thank you.